Welcome back to the Mindfully Gay podcast. I'm Jerry, here with John and Nick for part 2 of our exploration into intimacy within the gay community. If you haven't yet, check out part 1 for the foundation of today's discussion.
We're diving deeper today, focusing on the healing aspects of sexual magic and the challenges of navigating intimacy impacted by pornography and social media.
A heads up, this episode discusses adult themes, so listener discretion is advised. We're getting real about the pressures we face and how open, honest dialogue can lead to healing.
We pick up where we left off. I had just opened up about the power of sexual magic. Listen to Nick's response. And what happens is, in these sensual circles, we're naked. I talk openly and without shame about masturbation. We masturbate. We get off. We self-pleasure. This can be a beautiful thing, and it can be a very healing thing. It can be a very empowering thing. Expand your awareness around how your own sexual pleasuring, whether it's with yourself or with a partner or a group of people, can also be very empowering and liberating and healing. And that's what we get to explore and play with tonight in this circle. And what happens is, I think some think, oh, I'm just going to an orgy, right? They just label it as that. From a distance, it might look like that, but when you're in it, it's this beautiful sensual meaning these guys are embraced. They are holding each other. Their, heads are in laps, heads are on shoulders. They're just holding. Yes, there's stimulation as well, but in addition to that, there's just that connection. And it's so beautiful to watch. And you talk about the fantasy, and I don't think it has to be a fantasy, but it's, that's only a couple of hours, right? But to then take that experience and have a weekend or a week or whatever it is to have this opportunity to express yourself in this way, to have the conversations about it, to allow that boulder perhaps to crumble away and float away. That's my vision. That's my hope. That's my fantasy in this tantric work and this body sensual work and the sex magic of all this.
Mm.
I think it sounds like something that's effective for people, and I don't doubt it. I think that for me personally, to approach something like that, I have a lot of apprehension because, namely because of the reason why I brought up initially, because I have 15 years of porn under my belt, and there's expectation, and there are people that, I don't... It's weird. Had we started doing porn while I was in, it just never would have happened if I was here in Utah. Living in Boston, doing it there, living a gay life there, being very celebrated, huge community. We lived in the South End. Everything was gay, so it was a very different time and place there. Mm-hmm. And I'm just trying to wrap my head around, if things were different, and that it's hard for me to see. It's hard for me to see myself involved in a situation like that, because I think I have baggage with the porn that I've done, and I have an inability to believe that people aren't looking at me in that way. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of times where I feel it's a benefit, where it's opened doors for me, or it's gotten me what I've wanted, I guess. And so in some ways, I've used it to an advantage, but at the same time, I think it's a disadvantage for me in a group setting like that, because I just I don't know. I can't escape the feelings of what I'm thinking in terms of I'm just being a porn show right now for people. Mm-hmm. And then the expectations of what I'm supposed to, the cum shot's got to hit the scene or whatever. It's just it's I can't get out of it. I can't get my head out of that place.
These are very high ceilings.
Just you wait. But, so it's, I don't know. I get what you're saying, John, and I think, I know you're a very conscientious and thoughtful therapist in this process, and I'm sure it's a very enlightening experience, but it's just right now it's just hard for me to envision being a part of it.
I think that's true for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I think the baggage is different for everyone. I'm too fat. I'm too old. I'm not pretty enough. What kind of guys are going to be there?
Yeah.
Uh, am I going to be good enough? Am I going to
Mm-hmm.
perform well enough?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And those are certainly the questions that I get, in regards to this, before they even decide to show up. I mean, for them to show up is pretty huge, but there are those questions, and they're very valid. Am I going to, like, well, I'm overweight. Will I fit in? It's like, you're a person, aren't you? Okay, right? And and what are the guys are going to be like? So there's that very valid, questioning around what can I expect, and how do I need to show up in order to, you know, even be there, right? Will I fit in?
Mm-hmm.
And my hope is that they'll find that it might be a narrow doorway, but they find that way in, and just experience it. Just see, what it might be like for you. Um, and 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 appreciative that they even said that. Well, I'm concerned, or I'm worried about, well, I'm overweight, or I'm this, or I'm that, or I'm not this, or I'm not that. Uh, and I hope that in doing these things, and I do this in yoga too, I hope I give enough permission around something like, participating or not participating. If you just need or want to just observe and just watch, that's perfectly fine. If you need to leave early, that's fine. Do what you do, do what you need to do to take care of you in this circumstance. And we can certainly continue the conversation, and I would be happy to, afterwards, so I can make sure that you're okay. That's my hope, for as far as my expectation, as far as the facilitator in all of this, that it's a safe enough space that you can come in with whatever questions or concerns or worries that you have, and take a glimpse. Just try it out. If this isn't for you, then that's okay too.
I'm kind of hung up. I have some interesting feelings, and I know we've talked about this, and I believe in the medicine of this, and I know you've taken it a lot further than I have for a couple of reasons, and I've had the last Body Central session we had. I remember at some point I was with this gentleman that was very overweight, and it was a very beautiful experience. I mean, we just were kind of, I don't want to say cuddling, but we were just kind of like in this holding each other place.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, the energy of this guy's sweetness was just so evident. I mean, I kept thinking, this is really just kind of a beautiful, just to hold each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think where I'm hung up is all the narratives. See, we're talking about this highly intimate, connective, sexual piece, right? And I would argue that what we're talking, those barriers, I think are showing up in non-sexual places for gay folks in our community.
Sure.
Right? Like, there is the hesitancy to be open and vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think where I'm hung up is I'm thinking, how do we navigate that? We're talking about it now in the sexual context, and I think the communal response has been this object-object relationship with each other. Even at the gym, right? It's like, there are gay guys there. It's interesting it seemed like back in the day, if I recognized you as gay, I may not have known you, but I might head nod you or I might acknowledge you. Nowadays, there's this very coy, like, kind of an energy, like, don't connect with me. And
or let me, if I can just push it further, they're definitely viewing, they're definitely objectifying, but then they're quick to turn and not, I don't want you to know that I'm doing that type of thing. So I get what you're saying, right? It's I know that that's that thing that I like so much more than diving into the app, getting, a 2-minute dose of, oh, okay, I'm hot, people think I'm hot, I'm glad I got that, as opposed to an interaction, just actually speaking to someone at the gym for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
That did some butt shit in front of me and it was hot as fuck and I want to talk to this person. It's so much more, there's so much more to it. But I know what you mean. And I think
like, why do we do that?
But I think it's because, what you just said about an embrace with someone, a nude embrace with someone that maybe you're not sexually attracted to. That's a terrifying thought for a lot of people, because we're conditioned, through religion and through our grandparents or whatever, to think that all of that is hugely pervertedly wrong. Like, it's such a shameful thing. You should have been married. You should have gone to the military, and you should have gone on a mission. But though that
I did.
Right? I did those things. Yeah.
And here I am.
Right. And so I think that we're also deeply troubled with those topics and how to connect to them, that we just push them aside and we just get right to the objectification, because it's some gayness, at least it's something happening, but all that other stuff that I don't know how to feel right about because I envision my grandfather shooting me with a gun, or whatever. It's just such a place of trauma that it's hard to, even when I see it on TV, when I see two guys kissing on primetime television, I'm still like, it still like does something to me, and it shouldn't. It's great when Will and Grace or whatever the fuck, wherever it's happening. It's a monumental, important step for us in our community. But at the same time, I'm always still kind of like, oh, I hope my straight friends don't see that, or some stupid shit like that goes off in my mind. And so, I think again, I know we keep saying it, but the medicine or the balm is the community and the conversations that we can have, whether it is in a circle like John is hosting, or it's something like this, or it's a game night, or whatever it may be. Yes. It's just having more interactions with us to hopefully start to chip down those guards and that weirdness that we have around just embracing and being together and hearing about each other. I just think that there's a mix. We all have different baggage with it, but we're all just at a point where we can't really deal with it, so we just push it aside and we just get to objectification.
Isn't it interesting at game night? I thought this was so interesting. I think we planned 2 or 3 hours for game night. And we sat down, we started playing the game, and at some point, the game stopped. And we spent the next 90 minutes getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And talking.
Yeah, because everyone's hungry for it, for God's sake.
Yeah, like it's just so evident that we're hungry for those connections, that it's almost like we'll find excuses to make it happen.
Well, yeah, and I think that's isn't that the reason why we did that? That we're creating these opportunities, right? Here's a game night, here's Super Bowl, here's movie night, whatever it is. That's the excuse. That's the buffer. We're going to play a game, or we're going to
lure.
It's the lure.
Yeah.
It's
not a dick pic.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, right. It is the dick pic of this experience, right? Yeah. Something to lure them in. We're engaging in something, and then as the walls start to come down and the trust is there and there's a little fun, and then we have the conversation. Isn't that why we're doing it?
I have to make a confession, and I'm laughing because I'm visualizing at game night. Everyone's looking at their phone, looking at Grindr. You're 3 feet away. Oh, is this you?
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Is this you?
So fucking typical. No, definitely.
I will check Grindr at the gym, or if I go to Spring City, right? I'll check Grindr, and I'm like, Okay, there's someone 24 feet away from me.
Right. Where are they?
And not because I'm like wanting to hunt them down. I'm just like, who's the other queer?
Yeah.
Like, who's the other, right?
Yeah.
And I just want to like, am I going to recognize who they are? Oh. I'm kind of wondering if we should broadcast this. No.
I think this is great because something like that, that's just normal. That's what we're gonna do. That's what guys are doing. We've got our grinder up, we've got our scruff up, and it's the the titillation of someone's nearby, and and you may not make a contact, but that's so what. I think we can normalize that, and and there is also there's more.
Grinder. I'm going to change my grinder name to Just Say Hi. Come tap me on the shoulder.
Right. You'll see some people do that.
Yeah.
Their name, that shows on their screen says just say hi or say hi, and those are the ones I'll go to and actually I'll read their profile, and usually they have pretty elaborate profiles and say quite a bit about them, and I'll respond usually really nice profile guy, and have a great day, something like that, because they took the time, and just to see that. I guess what I want to say is there are people out there, I think, that are attempting to make connection, because even sometimes their profiles may say I don't hook up, but they're wanting something, and so maybe it's just conversation. I think my profile says I'm just here to chat.
And that, John, maybe that kind of goes back to this issue, the idea that I proposed earlier about it's the individual's responsibility to manage the dose. And so maybe in this way, they're having the restraint, because it's funny. I remember meeting you on the app, and I remember immediately opening my gallery, because that's the program that I run. And I remember that you didn't. And I remember we had conversations, and I just remember thinking, oh, okay, this is a cool dude. There's definitely more there than just what I'm programmed to be doing. And we had some back and forth exchanges, and it was all very nice, but I never have, been revealed to your nude gallery. And that's, that is a good example of the restraint of dose in that situation. I don't have to go flashing my privates to everyone in the world. I could just actually have a conversation. I could use the app differently. When it comes to pornography or when it comes to consumption of porn, it's a more difficult one, because Jerry, you're proposing a different type of porn, perhaps a different strain of it that would maybe be that one that if someone was trying to control dose or choose the correct or a different dose would maybe go to something like that. But I think the consumption of porn itself is not maybe such about the dose issue. It's just about right now there's really only one type of porn, and it's hardcore. I guess there's not something different.
Well, I'll challenge that, because wouldn't you say that? I mean, porn has evolved.
Yeah.
Pornography has gay porn has evolved. Sure. If you look at some of the, which I really enjoy, some of the my early stuff. It's like this back in the '70s and like cult studios where it's all just kind of music and there's no talk. It's just guys, and they hook up and they do their thing, right? And that's just kind of the thing. And even in some just very dark, right? And odd seems like what is this? What's the theme here? What's going on here? But fast forward to the 2000s, even up to today, I'm seeing porn producers and companies, they are mimicking, in some cases, sitcoms. They'll take like a sitcom plot factor with all the quirky music and the laugh tracks and all of that, and they're producing porn. And like that tells me porn production has evolved over time. And so when you talked about, that fantasy of, can there also be in the genre of porn something that's more sensual. And I would say, I think there is. It's probably not as popular, but it's there. I've seen it, and there's some beautiful connections. Um, so I just wanted to put that out there.
But I think maybe also, if I can, then maybe the other question is so I totally agree with, with XTube came Us, and that was a whole different genre of just reality porn, of not overproduced and whatever it may be. And so agreed. I think there's evolution that's happening, and it is showing maybe, in comparison to the dark leather porn or whatever it is. John always talks about that, like getting sex out of the dungeon, because pornography for a long time was just about this dungeon sex and this dark.
Yeah.
And so you're right, it's evolving. But I think the question, excuse me, or the better question for now is that, do we have a genre of porn that is going to help that individual that's dealing with body conscious issues? That you know what I mean? I know we're not there yet, but could we start producing some genre of porn that is actually more helpful to that dilemma, to those to people that are just not connecting with themselves because they don't see themselves in the porn, and
When we were talking about our coming out stories, at some point we had this conversation about the failure to see ourselves accurately portrayed in media.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we talked about, in the absence of that, our only assumption is then who I am is abnormal.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I believe we've created a similar vacuum in our pornography material. You're not going to find me. You're not going to find you're not going to find your average kind of guy
Yeah.
in the porn right? It's these super hot, in many cases, just unreachable kinds of people that, and so part of me is speaking to, what would porn look like if it was more inclusive of the different bodies and colors? And I mean, look at how race is depicted in porn, and who plays what role in those porn scenarios, right? And I'm also going to say, I'm not trying to be like prude or righteous here. I love that kind of material. I love some of the raw stuff. I don't even know how to. I just very eclectic in my taste. But I think I'm talking about two things. One is, how do we create a more inclusive experience, and where people see themselves represented in that material. And I think I would even take what I'm suggesting to another step, to say, what would it be like to create like a 6 videos, if you will, that was an exploration of the sensuality, almost instructional. I guess we would classify it as porn because it would probably be naked and sexual kinds of touching and engaging, but it could also be instructional, like a group of guys just connecting and practicing looking at each other in the eyes. Right? And touching each other's bodies without maybe just focusing on the dick and the ass, but it's just like, you have beautiful hands, or I don't know. I mean, I'm being crazy here, and we can cut all this out. No. But I'm just saying, there is no material that I'm aware of. I think the closest I've seen is, I can't remember the name of his broadcasting company, but Davey Wavy is producing some interesting material that. Of course, everyone is very body-centric again, but a lot of the premise of his videos, and I've only seen a few of them, tend to have these really interesting storylines and seems to incorporate a layer of sensuality. I have no idea how successful he is. I'm not talking about running a business. I'm just saying there's a tool, there's a vehicle here. We even have talent right here in this room that could potentially... how do we create that with these ideas? Instead of it just being a topic that says, wow, this is just how it is, I guess I'm suggesting that we can take what we know energetically that is problematic and figure out how to create something with it. And that's the sex magic.
That is the sex magic. Yeah.
I also, so yes, agreed. But I also just wonder if, in the hetero world, this isn't the dilemma. They're not looking to porn for their definition of themselves sexually in the world and everything. And so, yes, I hear what you're saying. We definitely have this very popular vehicle that could serve better, perhaps, if the content were different. But on the flip side of it, what is it that we have to do so that people don't feel like they have to go there for that? Like, I mean, just like the straights do, I mean, I'm assuming, but I'm just saying, like, there's got to be. We can't just. I don't think that we can just look to the future and say we've got to just produce different porn so people can grow up feeling better about themselves and their community. I think again, it just goes back to we need to also have conversations about opening up and being vulnerable and stupid in front of each other, and that's okay. And understanding that you had the same apprehensions that I do, and that makes me feel like not such a mess because I've never actually talked about my apprehensions around sex with another living being because I'm so ashamed about it. Right. And so there is a visual therapy, I think, that could be helpful, but I also think I really do believe just having more conversations with people about it is deeply helpful as well.
And I'll even argue, that too is sexual magic. We're putting, that adjective, on there, sexual magic, but that's the magic. That is it, I think. And I believe that's what we have been striving to do, and we've started with this, with Mindfully Gay, is creating these opportunities to have these conversations. We need to have the conversation, and have folks out there listening and watching have this realization that, I didn't know that I could even have that conversation.
And moreover, come be a part of it. Like it's for you. It's here. It's available to you. Like, come and do this.
That's it. Yeah, it's available to you. This is not, we're not segmenting this to, this elite group over here.
Or moreover, you don't have to move to a super liberal state like Massachusetts. Like, you can be in rural Utah and understand. It's funny, if I can, just to say, like, when I go on the apps, when I'm down in Beaver or Milford, and I do look into the apps, it isn't. I don't ever hook up when I'm down there. I don't think anyway. But it is more just good. There's more of me. There's more. There's homos down here. There's gays down here. Like, it just makes me feel better because for the longest time of my life, those are the places where I lived, and I was, I always just felt like I never connected in those places. And so it is nice to just look at the apps and know, there's other living homos here too.
Absolutely. Sometimes we go to Winnemucca.
Yeah.
Right. But when I would look on the apps and Winnemucca and say the next nearest person is 230 miles away, I'm like, I'm so alone.
Hello out there.
Yeah,
Hello.
It's about a 4-hour drive.
But I get what you're saying, because we didn't have that back in the day. If you're in rural wherever,
you're the only one.
You're the only one as far as you're concerned, right? But now that we do have the apps, it gives us that sense of, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I may not connect or talk with them at all, but just that sense, it does relieve something. To know that I'm not the only one.
They're here.
We're everywhere.
Exactly. It's true.
And even that can have a nice settling,
it's calming.
Effect on a person. So and I think we've said this, but I'll say it again, that we're certainly not discrediting the apps. We're not discrediting porn. Yeah. They have their place, and they have been, they can and have been helpful, I think, for people and individuals. I think there's just a big to all of it.
But I'm sorry, and that's exactly the dose issue, I think. It is, these tools exist, these things do exist. It's just understanding the importance of the restraint that's necessary when using them, and it's real hard to do when it's porn, when it's getting off, because when you want to get off and that need is there and that testosterone, the drive, let's come, whatever. Yeah. But at the same time, it's being able to take pause and think, is this dose going to give me what I need, or is it going to put me into a darker place? Is it going, is it not going to help me answer the things that I'm struggling with?
Yeah, those deep questions.
See, I think a couple of things. I think a lot of people, I think porn in the gay community is a very different cultural experience that is in the heterosexual world.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, we're a community that openly celebrates porn celebrities.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? Like a gay pride, we're going to see this person, this person, this person, and everyone knows, oh, they're porn stars.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like Dr. Cottrell or right people who are servicing the community as drag queens, and it's porn stars.
Yeah.
So I think that it has a very different kind of cultural take on it. And I think one thing that I've noticed is like sex sells, frankly. And it's interesting when we've built some of our activities or events and it kind of created a sensual twist to it. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that people respond to.
Yeah.
Right? It's interesting because I think if it doesn't have it on there, it's interesting. I feel like people treat it suspiciously. Like the Super Bowl thing. Mm-hmm. Oh, I wonder what's going to happen.
Is there a sling?
Yeah. Right. There's like this angle to it. And so I think the idea that I put out is I'm just thinking about what are the vehicles or the ways to broaden the conversation and to like I'm listening to this book, The Pleasure Activism, and it's activating. Like I'm just thinking, wow, what is it about me that has like so circumvented the ability to speak about my own sexuality with such liberation? The other thing I've been doing too, which is really interesting, and I'm revealing a secret to you guys and to all of our fans. Mm-hmm. When I go on Grindr or Scruff, there's the opportunity to say, here's my Instagram page. Mm-hmm. And so I literally go through every profile. It's like Instagram page. I pull up their page, follow Mindfully Gay. And what's interesting is I might do 10 of those a night. I might find 10 people to send an invitation to. Mm-hmm. 8 of them will follow back. And I think if you go to my page, if you go to the Mindfully Gay page, it's pretty clear what we're trying to create. Right. And I think people, and it's interesting, it is across the board. And I'm surprised with some of the people who are responding to the invitation. And I'm glad that they're responding because I've always seen this as an intergenerational thing. I've seen it as very eclectic in terms of who we're inviting to show up. And but to me, it's interesting that on this hookup app, I can find 10 guys and 8 of them are going to say, yeah, I'm kind of curious about this.
Yeah, because it's a collective problem. It's all our problem, until we have our own planet where, I mean, really, right? Until we do, and we can just start living that way and, raising and whatever. It's a collective problem. We're all just like, I need something more different. And everyone's apprehensive about asking for it because of roles that we're supposed to be or whatever, and yeah, I think what you're seeing, Jerry, is it's without a doubt, regardless of the strain of how the individual presents or whatever it may be, it's still it's in all of us that it's just this lack of connection, and it's just kind of what we have. The best things of our gay lives are drag and porn, and that's great and all, but there's got to be more than that because it's just not healing enough, for the damage that a lot of us have. And I think that these conversations in this community and this commitment to, just like Brad said the other day, he's committed. He's going to show up. He's going to keep coming. Am I talking about Brad and Will? Brad? Doug. Damn it, Doug. I'm sorry. Sorry, Doug. But I suck with names. So, but he, he said it to you the other day. I'm going to show up, and I think that's where we have to get to. Is just getting more people to show up.
So I'm curious. We kind of started this conversation, not really knowing where it was going to go. How are we feeling now that we've had it? Like we talked about feeling anxious and, we kind of, how are we feeling now? We're kind of at the end of this. How are we feeling right now?
Mm-hmm. I know personally that, with at least with my personal apprehensions and the way the way that I think I know how everyone's looking at me, like that's the part that I have to work on personally. I don't think it's something that comes from community. It's something that I need to quell within myself, that inner critic, that voice, that negative thing that's telling me I can't do this or that. And I've gotten to a much better, I've definitely been ruled by those things for decades of my life, and I'm just happy to say that as I'm getting older now and getting close to 50, I think that my ability to manage those voices and quell them or push them off is getting better. I think for me personally, so to answer the question, I know I have work to do in that area, and it is about not always having the reaction that I do around other gays. Of course, a lot of them know who I am and the porn that I've made, but at the same time, um, I that's not going to change. There's nothing I can do about that. But I need to change. I need to work on changing the way that I'm dealing with that dilemma. I think, and it kind of is just for me to work on and be more, I guess, accepting of the fact that, well, it's out there, and people are going to look at you that way for a very good reason, because they have been for a while. But maybe it just means that, for me to be more comfortable in situations like that, I just have to be more forthcoming about maybe how I'm uncomfortable in the first place, and I maybe have to share that with more people. I don't know. It's a tough one. I'm glad that we're talking about these issues. I've never really talked about this one with anyone before. Um, it makes me feel good to talk about it, but I think I just have more work to do. I think that's how I feel about it right now.
I think despite my anxieties and my backstories, I know for certain that, I trust you guys and I trust this process and I feel listened to. And so that allows me to have this
Yeah.
conversation. So I know part of my nervousness was to talk about the body sensual and the tantric work that I do, because there's still some shame around that and some, ooh, what's that, kind of thing. But I think the passion around it for me outweighs the nervousness and anxiety around it, because I see the power in it. And so having the opportunity just to kind of talk about it with not only our audience, but just here in a safe
Sure.
space, I feel a weight lifted.
I like that.
Ah,
Yeah.
that feels good.
Yeah.
And hopefully someone is hearing this, hearing all of our stories really, and can relate to, pieces of it, and see, they can see themselves in us, right? Um, and continue to give that invitation,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Come get this medicine.
come get this medicine,
Yeah.
this magic, in whatever form it might show up initially, whether it's the dick pic, if that's the grabber, then maybe that's the way in, because we're hoping that uh, this conversation, the podcast, the social events, um, and the retreat that's coming up will continue to evolve um, into the grander, I think, conversation we want people to have in their continual growth. Because I know it's been helpful for me.
And you said something super important, because that for me, one of the reasons why I am so enthusiastic personally about doing this with both of you is the conversations that happen and the subsequent weight that's lifted every time. Like it really does. Like it's I just don't talk about this stuff with anyone. I don't have anyone to talk to about these types of things. I'm not going to call my father up and talk about this. So,
Right.
and so to have this, it is very. There's a lot. We're all under a lot of weight. It's just taken. It's religion, it's politics, it's all that crap, and it's just
Yeah.
weighing on us heavily. And this conversation and this friendship, it really is therapeutic to help lift those things, so that you can start to consider alternatives and really bring them into existence. And I think it only gets better the more people that get involved. It's a compounding effect. And yeah, come to these events, come and meet us, and let's talk about are crazy shit, and you realize you're not so crazy, you know? We're all just crazy, but yeah.
You know, it's interesting when you say, I just haven't had these conversations. And I know you're connected to a lot of gay men, right? With the yoga stuff you do and just being in the community. And then the work that you've done, you know a lot of gay men. I think it's interesting as a therapist, I sometimes am blown away at how many clients come. We call it therapy, but they just need to talk.
They just need to talk.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that attracts people, like, you've seen my brigade of fire keepers. They're all gay men. In fact, so much so that some of the women have said, "Are women allowed to help out?" I was like, "Well, yes." But I think the reason I think people are hungry and they're looking for places to have the conversation. Now, it's interesting. When I talked about being anxious before, it was kind of anxious / fear, and I think I still have. I think I'm still feeling some anxiety. I'm not sure if it's fear though. I think I was just kind of evaluating, like, why am I feeling that nervous energy? And I thought, I think there is a hunger within me. Like, I recognize my work in this. And I often feel like I'm supposed to be the facilitator, but I'm just like, I'm not even sure I'm qualified to have this conversation.
But
Or I mean, I recognize the value of the conversation,
Yes,
but there's this
yes.
part of me. It's like I got to take down that mantle of therapist, shaman, elder, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
and recognize. I'm kind of forging my own experience and having to be open in ways that are really pretty new for me.
But I'm sorry, I just have to jump in and say it though. But you're allowed that as any of those, as the facilitator, as the shaman, as the therapist. You're allowed to have that anxiety and to feel it. It's not. I don't think and to explore it and to want to talk about it. I think that. I hope that that's not what it is. That you feel as though because of who you are to so many, you can't be this right now.
Well, that's the thing. It's a place of ego. Like, in the roles that I play, I mean, I know that people project a story on you. People project a story on the therapist.
Sure,
People project a story on the shaman. In fact, later tonight, I'm going to talk to 2 individuals who are worried about something that I'm engaged in because somehow it compromises my role as the shaman or the elder of the community. And it's like, and so in those roles, people project that story.
Sure.
Here, that's what I'm saying is here in this moment, and maybe as we have further conversations on this, I'm recognizing I've got to liberate myself from the like it's okay for me to do my work. I guess.
Yeah.
And it's scary work.
It is.
I texted him yesterday. I kind of had this realization about my body that I've never had before. In the ceremonies we did with Ruben, I had some realization. And the attachments to some of those realizations, once I got there, were just incredibly liberating to us. Like, to see yourself in this different way, in this different light, is powerful.
Very powerful.
It is. It like I told you before. I'm not saying that can always come from nutrition and fitness, but it is an honor that I share with people that I help through this path when I hear things like that, and I do. It takes consistency. It takes whip cracking. Sometimes it takes doing things you don't want to do, but
the whip cracking was fun.
But it's just such a powerful experience to really understand where you were holding yourself for so long, and the power that you have to change it. And I don't know, it's tough. It's not what we were raised to believe, Jerry. It's just not, everything we went through, and we were just taught, no, wrong, suppress, it's wrong, it's bad. And it's so hard to erase that program, because it gets so deeply ingrained in every decision you make and every chance you don't take. And it's done a lot for me, and I know it's done a lot for others. It's just is honoring yourself. It was I think I sent it to both of you, or maybe you sent it to me after I sent something to both of you, but it's the discipline. It's the getting up and getting to the gym when you don't want to, is an example of it. Getting a workout in. The discipline to push yourself in a point where you really don't want to do it. And what is that? That's self-love. And that's really, it's coming from a place where my grandfather taught me that I was, whatever, trash, to I'm honoring my temple. I am completely conscious about the things that are going in, and the way in which the process that it's fueling, and the way in which it's changing me, not only for myself, but now it's imbued me with this purpose to help others. And it's a far better place to be than, the deep, dark, hermity place of just not knowing yourself or anyone else.
Well, I want to, in light of this conversation, and I'm trusting we'll probably talk more about this in other podcasts, but John, I've known you, 25 years?
At least.
I think you were 4, 6.
Must have been. Must have been, my God. All right.
But John, you've always had a beautiful body. I mean, you are the textbook example of perfect anatomy, and I'm guessing that those narratives get thrown on you, or you deal with that. But what I know about you, like, I love your body, but I love your discipline, your kindness. I've seen you in ceremony just be so open and receptive and intuitive. And I just want you to see or know that I see the complexity and the beauty of who you are. And it's there, body, mind, and spirit. And you talked about how people project these stories on you, and I've kind of witnessed that. I mean, I've seen it. But I cannot think of a better midwife for my own journey. The kindness that you show up, your commitment, your discipline. I've seen you wrestle with your demons here and in Lodge.
Definitely.
Right. And I just see you in this beautiful, complex way. And I think the sadness I was feeling earlier is, it saddens me that people only get as far as those images. And so it's just been such a deep experience. And if John were sitting here, I mean, I love this man who's just so passionately committed to his Sicilian roots. And I've watched him at our parties just be so friendly and engaging and always a smile. And I know there's other sides to him and you and both of you, but again, such complex people. And to me, that is sensual. Yes. To know you at those levels. Yeah. And it caresses my spirit to know you both.
I like that. That's beautiful. That's sensuality.
Yeah.
That's that holistic component that we've been talking about, that we can go beyond the surface and
beyond the app.
Yeah. That there is more. It's okay. There's got to be a surface. There's a cover to the book, right? But there's substance.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what you're speaking to, and I appreciate that. And and when we can be in circle, one-on-one, whatever the case may be, and recognize those things with our brothers and share it out loud is very empowering, it's powering, it's healing, and we're being seen. That's so huge.
Really, truly seen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Agreed.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I need a cigarette and a beer.
Well, thanks for joining us on this therapy session, everybody. We, as Jerry said, we will most likely be continuing this conversation. And we want you to join the conversation too. And if it's going over to mindfullygay.com and seeing some of the events that we're doing, we do have a retreat coming up in April. It's in Utah. It's just out of Salt Lake City. If you happen to be here or want to fly out here or travel out here or just be in contact with us, social media is a good way to engage through our Instagram page. It's mindfully_gay, correct?
Instagram, yeah.
Yeah, our Instagram. And so reach out to us
group too.
in our Facebook group. So if that's the easiest and best way for you to reach out to us, just start tapping.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. So thank you, and we look forward to engaging more like this on our next episode of the Mindfully Gay podcast. Thank you for diving into the depths of intimacy with us on Mindfully Gay. We hope today's exploration of sex, sexuality, and the power of sexual magic has offered you insights and a sense of connection. Remember, the journey towards understanding and compassion in our intimate lives is ongoing. We encourage you to keep these conversations alive and embrace the journey with authenticity and courage. Join us on the next episode of Mindfully Gay as we continue to explore the multifaceted experiences of the gay community. Until then, stay empowered and keep nurturing those deep, meaningful connections. See you next time.